Not allowed to say what's going to happen today because everyone's just going to have to watch for themselves. But it's going to happen. Something's going to happen.
Testimony from January 6th as lawmakers took their case to prime time.
And could we see Peyton Manning back with the Broncos? What the team owners could offer the sheriff. But we start this hour with a live look from Ball Arena there, where a week from now, the Avs will be playing in the Stanley Cup Final. Of course, we're still waiting on their opponent. The Lightning took the lead in the series last night.
One on the road.
Yeah, two-time defending champion. But it certainly feels weird to be talking about hockey when we have temperatures in the 90s.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Right? It would be a good place to cool off because today we'll have highs in the 90s this afternoon, about 94 degrees as compared to yesterday at 90. So we're slowly but surely upping that temperature day after day. 70 degrees will be our temperature at 9 a.m. this morning. We'll be all the way up to 89 degrees by 2 p.m. and our forecast highs in the low to mid 90s here for the Front Range and the Eastern Plains. Our average afternoon high is 82 degrees this time of year. The record 99 set back in 2013. So our highs today all along the Front Range will be mostly in the 90s, all the way up into northeastern Colorado with 70s and 80s off to the west. And we do have a dense fog advisory for the Eastern Plains until 8 a.m. Heat advisory all weekend for temperatures above 100 degrees off to the west. Our tubing forecast for today, just in case you're doing that, 80s at 11 a.m. and 90s by 2 p.m.
And it's a perfect day to wear flip-flops at work if you want to do that as well. We have a good, not calling out anybody. All right, so we have a drive on I-70-270. Take a look from the cameras over here. You can see on that lowered section, the westbound side, a bit busy going through the tunnel. Eastbound looking okay. That express lane from Colorado Boulevard to 225 should be opening next Friday. Heading out, that should really alleviate the traffic heading out that to the east side of town. The overall drive, as you can see from the drive times, look pretty standard for us. Getting better on 270, I-76, a little volume push into downtown Denver, but overall not too bad for you anywhere you want to go on or off the highways. It's been really quiet here on this Friday, thankfully.
Well, we do have some breaking news this morning. We have learned that President Biden plans to lift pre-departure COVID-19 testing requirements for international travelers to the U.S. And this could happen as soon as Sunday. It comes after the United Kingdom, Italy, Greece, and others have also lifted similar requirements as pandemic restrictions ease around the world. So as summer sets in and Denver gets ready to welcome thousands of hockey fans to downtown, COVID cases are on the rise again. The CDC says every county in the Denver metro has a high transmission right now. Denver 7's Colette Bordelon joins us live because this is not what we want to hear.
Never what you want to hear, right, Brian? I mean, school's out, summer's basically here. There have been parties, gatherings, celebrations, whatever word you want to use for it. But that means that this increase, it didn't really shock those in the healthcare world. And honestly, for all of us, the ebb and flow of this virus, it's something we've all learned to live with at this point. It's still unclear if the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment will be implementing a mask mandate in response to this rise, but UC Health recommends them in large crowds, especially if you're indoors. And as we've said before, being vaccinated and boosted decreases your chances of getting very sick. Doctors say these measures, more than 2 years into the pandemic, are to ensure we don't overwhelm our healthcare systems like we've seen in the past.
We are seeing an increase in hospitalizations, and so it's sort of ticking up slowly. And so it's not like it was at the peak of December, January, when it was exploding. We're not even probably a fifth of the way there, but it's definitely rising.
Stanley Cup Final, which, let's be honest, it's on all of Denver's minds as the next big thing that's on our calendar. Those at Ball Arena say that they're working with local government and league leaders to make sure they keep up with all the health and safety guidelines. They also tell us that they're increasing their cleaning protocols. Live in Denver, Colette Bordelon, Denver 7.
Well, last night was the first time the public heard disturbing new details about the January 6th insurrection in Washington. Isabel Rosales has the latest from Capitol Hill.
This isn't easy to watch. I want to warn everyone that this video includes violence and strong language.
The Democratic chair of the January 6th committee sending out a grim warning before unveiling never-before-seen evidence of the attack on the nation's capital unfolding.
I am not allowed to say what's going to happen today because everyone's just going to have to watch for themselves. But it's going to happen. Something's going to happen.
House members, they're all walking over now through the tunnels.
The committee unveiling chilling evidence alleging that former President Donald Trump agreed with chants that former Vice President Mike Pence should be hanged.
The president responded with this sentiment, quote, "Maybe our supporters have the right idea. Mike Pence, quote, deserves it."
At least 4 Trump aides testified that they told him and his team that he lost re-election.
I made it clear I did not agree with the idea of saying the election was stolen and putting out this stuff, which I told the president was.
How did that affect your perspective about the election when Attorney General Barr made that statement?
It affected my perspective. I respect Attorney General Barr.
Despite making findings public, the committee is pressing that the investigation is still ongoing.
What we make public here will not be the complete set of information we will ultimately disclose.
Reporting from Capitol Hill, I'm Isabel Rosales.
Colorado lawmakers are responding to last night's hearings. Democratic representative and January 6th committee member Diana DeGette took to Twitter saying, quote, "January 6th was one of the darkest days in our nation's history. Despite Trump's attempt to thwart our democratic process, our democracy held. Now it's important that every American sees exactly what happened that day and what needs to be done to ensure it never happens again." And Senator John Hickenlooper said in part, quote, "President Trump and his enablers tried to overturn an election and incited a violent insurrection," while adding that democracy is fragile, but we can strengthen it together.
Dozens of Coloradans are facing charges in connection with what happened on January 6th. The charges range from low-level misdemeanors for those who entered the Capitol to felony seditious conspiracy charges against far-right extremists. The 2 hearings next week will take place Monday and Wednesday at 8 a.m. our time. The January 6th committee hasn't announced a formal schedule for the rest of the hearings, but there could be as many as 8 before the end of the month. And the final hearing will be in September, right before the November midterms. You can find our full 360 in-depth coverage on last night's hearing right now on thedenverchannel.com.
Well, this morning, Greeley police are looking for this man they believe to be armed and dangerous. Luis Mendez Mayorga is accused of harassing and then stabbing a couple in downtown Greeley Wednesday night. Both victims are expected to be okay, but Mendez Mayorga faces second-degree assault charges, and there is a warrant for his arrest.
Well, we are in store for a stretch of hot days. Highs will be well into the 90s, which might have you thinking about ways to cool off. If you're heading to the water, then we do have some warnings for you. Denver 7's Veronica Acosta joins us live now. And Veronica, the waters are more dangerous right now than in years past.
And that's exactly why officials are really trying to drive home this message. They want you to be as safe as possible whenever you're around any kind of body of water. So this year is a little bit different. We got snow later in the year, which means we're going to see the impacts of that in places like the ones behind me here in Clear Creek. We might see those water levels rise just a little bit, those hike up, and you really have to be careful. There could be colder water, there could be debris in there as well. Now, because the water is a little bit colder, experts are saying you might want to put on that wetsuit. You might also want to wear some thermal clothing if you can't get your hands on a wetsuit. So you should also be wearing a life jacket, and that's probably the biggest piece of advice. In 2020, a record 34 people died from drowning in Colorado. So far this year, there have been a total of 13 drownings. That does put us on track for another record year.
Most of our drownings are someone who's not wearing a life jacket or started in a life jacket that was not sized appropriately. And you can be the world's strongest swimmer, and if you get sucked into certain parts of this river, you are not going to be able to just swim your way out of it.
2 other pieces of advice from experts. Once you're wearing that life jacket, and of course it fits properly, you might want to also have a whistle with you. That could help in case you're ever in trouble, and even a knife. In places like Clear Creek, there could be netting, and that knife would help you get rid of that pretty quickly. We're in Golden this morning. I'm Veronica Acosta, Denver 7.
New team ownership could bring quarterback great Peyton Manning back to the Broncos. ESPN reports the Walton Penner Group has discussed an advisory role for Manning. He retired after winning Super Bowl 50 back in 2016, but still lives in Denver and attends games often. Despite speculation, Manning was never officially tied to one of the four groups bidding for the Broncos.
Breaking his silence, what the police chief in Uvalde, Texas, is saying about his response to the deadly shooting that left nearly 24 students and teachers dead.
And a new role for Colorado's Spelling Bee whiz kid. The local honor and title Vikram Raju will receive today.